What is going on, you guys? It's your boy Average Bob, and in today's video, we got a lot to cover off on. We're gonna do a Steelers Giants preview. We're gonna touch on John Mara saying that there will be no changes to the front office between Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll as coach, and we're just gonna talk about all things in Giants Nation right now. So let's get started by diving into what John Mara said the other night at a preview for, I guess this is a documentary film about his father called The Duke. And I think it dives into the history of the Giants and also more of like the NFL and how Wellington Mara kind of, along with some other folks, pretty much created the modern NFL and evolved it to what it is today. Regardless, so pretty much at this film premiere or whatever, John Mayer said there's not going to be any changes with Daboll and Shane. And I quote, obviously, we're all very disappointed with where we are at right now. Mayer said, but I'm not going to say one thing. We are not making any changes this season. I do not anticipate making any changes in the offseason either. So there you have it. Daboll and Shane are going to stick around no matter what happens this year. Honestly, there's two sides to this, right? Like, did the Giants want to clean house again and start a new coaching carousel, start looking for another GM? I think they're a little sick of doing that since they got rid of Jerry Reese and then Dave Gettleman came in and sucked. So, like, and then also when you look at it from a coaching perspective, since Coughlin, they've had Ben McAdoo, Pat Shermer, Joe Judge. So I think the organization is really yearning for some stability here instead of doing kind of like what the Jets do with a coaching carousel and GM carousel every few years, and then they're off the same clock. Right now with Shane and Daboll, but you do have our two guys that are on the same clock. And by clock, I mean they both started on the same day at the same time. They had to work with what they had from the previous administration. Now they're here trying to kind of either fix that and then build upon it and create their own identity and what they want this team to be. So far, it really hasn't had any success. If you go back to 2022, you kind of had a little bit of a fluke season with their first year at the helm where they went all the way to the playoffs, beat the Vikings. And I will say, we have to give everyone credit in that game, right? Saquon played unbelievable. Daniel Jones played unbelievable. And, they still had some like key drops at the end of the game and somehow managed to pull it off. So kudos for them for having that good season. They won some good games. Trust me, they did. Go back, and look at the games that they won. And then ultimately you get to play the Eagles and get your absolute doors blown off and ass kicked. That game versus the Eagles was a real tone setter and kind of a more true statement for how the team was looking at that point in time. Overmatched completely, and then you get your ass kicked, offense, defense, special teams. That translates to the whole next season and then the season after. So when you had no expectations, you played really well. Then expectations go up, you stink. Another year, you stink. You pay Daniel Jones, you let Saquon walk. Last weekend, Saquon comes back to the tune of 17 for 176 and a touchdown in MetLife Stadium and absolutely makes the front office, John Mara and Brian Daboll, all look like fools for not bringing him back. And I get it, man. There is that logic of not paying, an aging running back because those second contracts don't really work out too well. But the thing that kind of pisses me off is that with Saquon, they never fixed the offensive line when he was there to make him as good as he could have been, right? Like, how many times were we watching Saquon dance around in the backfield just to break even and get like 2 yards? So, yeah, last weekend sucked. I don't want to talk about it too much anymore because the season, I think, ultimately right now is over after the last few losses and how bad last weekend was. But you can watch my reactions on my previous videos if you want to see really how depressed I was after those games. And I still am kind of bummed out about it. But again, I do agree with John Mara in that regard that we don't want to keep constantly playing the carousel game here because it leads to more instability. And, there are some decent players on this team. It's just going to come down to like, can you build a good enough team where you have pro bowlers and all pros in certain positions and then slide in or the right quarterback, whether it's through free agency this upcoming season where you get a bridge or a gap guy to come in, or you find one through the draft. The Giants should probably be bad enough this year to find one through the draft, but some mocks I've looked at has us like picking like 7 through 9. So I don't know. I guess like some teams are way worse than us. Moving ahead to this Monday night matchup versus Steelers. The Steelers last weekend had a very good game versus the Jets where they had started they were losing at halftime. The Jets looked pretty sweet, taking the lead into the locker room. I think Aaron Rodgers had hit a Hail Mary in this game, or I don't know if it was 2 games ago. I can't remember off the top of my head now, but the next thing you know, they absolutely blow the doors off the Jets in the second half and beat them 37-15. The week before, they beat the Raiders 32-13. Week before that, they lose to the Cowboys 20-17. Cowboys usually steamroll the Giants. And they also lost to the Colts 27-24. So that's their last 5 games. Now you're looking at Russell Wilson, who played last weekend. I think he played pretty decently fine too, compared to like what we've seen from him when he was on the Broncos, which I think leads me to my first point. And if you're a Steelers fan watching this, like I have the utmost respect in the world for a guy like Mike Tomlin. I think he's criminally underrated. If you look at his stats, I'll post the stats here for his career, like coaching record season by season. I don't think he's ever had a negative or like an under 500 season, which is kind of incredible when you think about the transition from Big Ben to everyone else that they've had fallen off after that, like Mason Rudolph and Kenny Pickett and guys like that. And somehow, some way, they're still able to bring the best out of their players and make it work. I guess it's super helpful when you have an All Pro like T.J. Watt, who should absolutely feast this weekend if he's going against Andrew Thomas's replacement in Josh Zudu. But if he is going against Luminor, that's a pretty good matchup for that Luminor, as he has had a pretty successful season so far. But TJ Watt's one of the best in the game right now, and I imagine that he will have another good game Monday night. Going back to my point about Mike Tomlin, it really is. He makes the team better. He's, I think, personally one of the best coaches in the league right now, and I think he's criminally underrated. If you were to go into this season and say that the Steelers would be 5-2 with Justin Fields and Russell Wilson as their quarterbacks, everyone would say, you're freaking crazy. You don't know shit, blah, blah, blah. And it's really a testament to his coaching. Now, we'll see how they finish the season. They do have a great defense. But they just find ways to consistently be winners. I don't know how to, and it's like they're in a tough division, and they grind out these wins over other teams. And I'm actually, as much as the Giants season's over and they stink, I am looking forward to watching this game because I like to see what good coaching looks like. And that's what the Steelers have with Mike Tomlin. They put their players in the best places to make plays, and they're going to find those holes and mismatches against the Giants this week. What will Brian Daboll do to counteract that? And John Mara saying that Brian Daboll is safe for the rest of this year. I wish he's kind of, in his head said that he was safe, but also like openly being like, hey, like, yeah, I don't know. Like, let's see how the rest of the season goes before we're just saying this guy's safe when you're 2-5. You have some historically bad losses so far this season on account of coaching. And player management between not having a field goal kicker, a punter, stuff like that. So I would like to just have a little bit more of a hot stove under Brian Daboll's ass instead of just saying, yeah, everything's fine. We're happy with being 2-5 because it's absolutely unacceptable that that's kind of what it seems like the wording is. And they're like, okay, you re-signed Daniel Jones. Now I'm getting off the rails here, but you re-signed Daniel Jones. Now you're punting not 1, but 2 seasons as a result of that signing. What is the point of that? How do we get back to winning? It's not like the Steelers would do this and then be like, the season's, we're 2-5. The season's over. Like they would get back to 500 somehow and claw away wins and make it happen. So, it's just one of those things. It's just how important coaching is in this sport. Some teams, it doesn't even matter who they put out there. Quarterback, running back, wide receiver, offensive line, they somehow still get it done. The Steelers are one of those teams. The 49ers are surely one of those teams. So it really comes down to, having good coaching, and that leads, I don't know, there's like a weird trickle-down effect. And right now you have guys on the Giants that have mailed it in, and you saw it evident in the film last weekend with Deonte Banks playing arguably one of his worst games as a Giant. He was getting abused by Jalen Hurts, AJ Brown through the air. And then I think more importantly was just the total lack of wanting to make tackles, to even really play football. He looked like he was just out there making business decisions. By making business decisions, I mean just giving up on plays, not caring about how the game goes because you're already down 2 or 3 touchdowns and your offense is playing super piss poor that there's no way that they could score any points enough to get it back. So that leads to guys quitting, guys checking out, guys running down the field when Jalen Hurts has a run on 3rd and 12 or whatever and saying, I'm not going to tackle him when he's already got the first down by a half inch. Let him get 5 more yards. Or down the field later when someone's running for like a 30-yard gain, I'm not going to tackle him. I'm just going to hope someone else does. And I don't even care if I look like shit on film about it because I'm not going to get benched because Brian Daboll is safe this year. Pretty unacceptable. I really wish, I don't know. Like after a game like that, from a coaching perspective, should you be in the locker room or in the film room screaming and talking about how unacceptable it is? Like, did the cornerback coach, like, does he throw a chair in that meeting being like, this is fucking absolute piss poor effort, unacceptable at this level? Or are they just being like, yeah, this season's a miss because our quarterback sucks, but you're all playing fine with all of your great efforts? I don't know. And now I'm like in a conundrum of like, thinking about this out loud, talking like, will this ever get better? I don't, I don't. Now I'm turning into the Joker, like, but Jesus, guys. So let's jump over to Reddit mailbag. It's Reddit mailbag time. It's Reddit mailbag time. All right, so we're gonna look through the top posts on Reddit this week. First one from JRod24. I'm not even mad, just ready for this to be over. I think that's literally all of us. I am dead inside. I think that's how everyone felt last week as a Giants fan, just watching how pathetic of an effort it was. Guys not playing defense hard. I mean, and then there's one coming up in a little bit where some guy is playing hard, but it just sucks for him because we're wasting him. But yeah, everything about last weekend sucked. I think that really signified the end of the season, which is kind of brutal. Another year, the Mets actually outlasted the Giants this year, which is honestly crazy considering, their lack of playmakers as well. But it just goes to show you, like, if guys buy into a thing, want to be great, sometimes there's the ability to make it happen, but not for the Giants and not for the Giants for the last 12 years. We are squandering his career. Yes, that is surely a fact about Dexter Lawrence. He is probably one of the, I don't know, in my estimation, he's got to be the best interior defensive tackle in the league right now. And it definitely sucks for squandering his career. He looks amazing every single game. So guys, if you're still watching, I'm going to be watching. I know a lot of people are stopping watching. I'm sure these videos probably won't even get too many people watching anymore, which kind of sucks because the team sucks and people just give up and they don't want to really watch anymore. But I'll be here for you guys, so maybe you guys could be some therapy for me too. But my point is here, if you're watching the game, just appreciate 97. Watch him play because he is something absolutely special to behold right now. And again, this isn't the first guy we wasted in his career. And, we've wasted Odell, we wasted Saquon, so the Giants have no qualms in getting a great generational player and having them, kind of suck and never do anything, like championship wise. I also saw something about like the Vikings wanting to trade for Dexter Lawrence. Like that's where you really would lose me because Dexter's got to be a Giant for life. I would have to estimate because it's not like they're overpaying him or anything. And it's not like, whatever, like there's no reason to get rid of him. He's the captain. He really is the glue for this entire team. And, when he talks in that locker room and after games, people listen. And not many people draw that same thing. Next up, Bill Belichick kept it brutally honest with the Giants. Saquon was their best player for a couple $1 million more. They could have kept him. Instead, they got a guard or somebody. I don't know. So that's Bill Belichick's take on the Pat McAfee show. I'm not going to play it. You could watch it yourselves. But, yeah, I mean, he's not technically wrong there. It's just kind of annoying because, well, here's the thing. when they didn't pay up for guards or tackles or anything, the results were you have Glowinski, you got Brederson, you have guys that just suck. Or even when they sign guys like Nate Solder over the years, like those guys all sucked. So now the offensive line, the guys that they did bring in are playing decent, but now you don't have a running back to match it. So it is funny and makes you kind of appreciate looking back on things back in the day when the Giants had this sick offensive line. They had Bradshaw, Jacobs, Ward. They plethora of running backs that like one guy was better than the next and all very complimentary from one another. And it's like kind of like shit. Like what a great thing to have, 2,000-yard rushers, stuff like that. And you kind of take it for granted when it happens because now you're like, how we can't even build one good team, let alone have that for years and then plug guys in and it works. From Dan Duggan, I've seen bigger blowouts. Don't think I've ever seen a more lifeless fourth quarter. Giants just going out there, throwing 3 incompletions and punting. This is depressing. Yeah, Dan's absolutely right there. The fourth quarter, it was very, that's the word, lifeless. Completely lifeless. Nothing going in any facet of the game. Teams just don't want to, the guys just don't want to be there, and they're already kind of chucking up this season, which kind of sucks. Most importantly, here's the biggest thing that came out of this last week is that players, instead of taking accountability for their own actions, now the blame is being forced elsewhere. So from NYGiants on X, or formerly known as Twitter, Malik Neighbors was asked if the Eagles defense did anything differently in the first half that he had not seen on film. To this, Neighbors responds, "Watch the target tape. That was it. I was open." Now, you can go and watch this video. There are a couple different things that he says within it, but if you drafted this wide receiver in the top 10 last year and he's saying, "I have an issue with my quarterback. I'm open and he can't get me to the ball," things aren't going to be looking good in that locker room. What is Brian Daboll going to do with this situation? Because this is something that he's never really truly had to deal with. Especially now you got Neighbors, this guy you gotta keep happy. I know we had Tony that one time, but he was a freaking nut job head case and he never really did anything. And I don't even know if Tony's still in the league now that I think of it. He was on the Chiefs, then he was injured, and then he was like doing stupid stuff. I don't know. Anyway, gotta make Neighbors happy. He's got to be around here long term. But so is he just going to shit on Daniel Jones? Is Daniel Jones going to take that? I don't think this is the end of what you're going to see here because I don't think that 28-3 game versus Eagles is the worst that it'll get this year. And from NFL and CBS, the only starting QB with 0 passing touchdowns in 6 straight home games since 2000. Daniel Jones. That truly an insane stat, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it's the middle of the season again, and the Giants are scraping the free agent wire for a bottom of the barrel offensive lineman to fill the gaps that they didn't address in the offseason again. Yeah, I like this one. Very accurate, and it also kind of like is the, I feel like every offseason I was the Bernie Sanders meme where he's just like, "I am once again asking you to fix the Giants offensive line." So, so you're saying there's a chance? I don't even think this is funny. 0.2%. Daniel Jones is still the starting quarterback. Brian Daboll, and then just us as Giants fans. Yes, honey. Hey, the Giants have the most sacks in the NFL. I don't care. Shit, I don't care either. Yeah, it's interesting because the defense isn't that bad, but the offense is comically, criminally bad, and it's tanking a whole season. Anyway, thanks you guys for watching. Have a great rest of your day and rest of your week, and we'll chat in the recap video.